guys, welcome to another episode of Passing Time with Craig. I'm your host, as always, Craig McFarland, and once again, joining me today is my friend, very talented filmmaker, Matt Watterworth. Hello, Matt.
Craig, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm swell. I'm feeling good. I mean, I know that we're recording these things, much earlier than they show up. But yesterday we only had 7 new cases in Alberta of COVID-19, so I'm very, very happy to see that. Unfortunately, went up to 40 today, but we're sort of in a better place than we have been, which is nice.
We are, yeah, we're definitely in a better place, and I think it's what's helping us though is that we're getting a lot easier access to getting tested. It's a lot easier for people, and that's going to be very key as we possibly get a second wave.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of sort of recording these, I'm not quite sure. Well, I guess you probably know when this one's going out. You've got your schedule set.
So this will be released on Wednesday, and spoiler alert, we're recording this on Saturday, June 6th right now.
And so, yeah, I think it's important to sort of discuss just, even briefly what's going on in the world right now, which is kind of maybe like the new civil rights movement, which is kind of exciting and somewhat frightening in some cases, and but certainly very interesting. And I know that you went to today's Black Lives Matter rally, I guess, and I just wonder what that experience was like.
Yeah, so I was very thankful for work for allowing me to sneak out a little early so I can attend it, and went down to Olympic Plaza here in Calgary, and it was very powerful to be a part of it. This was a little different than the other kind of protests that have been going on. They're all peaceful protests, but this one's a little different. They use the term vigil, and I think that would be a good way to describe it. It was very much speeches, and unlike shouting into a crowd, they had the stage set up and they had speakers and microphones, and it was a lot better audio, so everybody can hear just one person. And there was I don't even know how many. I'm really bad at guesstimating people, but I'm going to say there was like at least 1,000 people there. People trying to keep their distance as best as they can. Everyone, I would say 95% of people were wearing masks, which were fantastic.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And what does help, I will say this about, keeping their distance, is that there was a lot of families or roommates there, or people that already are in each other's bubbles. So it makes it easier for little groups. But
right.
It's quite astounding.
I was just gonna say, I have a podcast called the Alberta Filmmakers Podcast, and I don't know when, but very soon we're going to have Jesse Lipscomb, who is a wonderful Black activist, actor, creator, entrepreneur, all sorts of things. And he's been doing some very cool things. He's in Edmonton, though. And we'll be releasing an episode where we sort of chat about it. But I mean, boy, we recorded that episode on May 27th. And, this movement has not slowed down. It's only gotten more intense, which is really good. It seems like these killings happen, and then there's a bit of an uproar or some small uprising, and then it sort of gets forgotten again. And so it's very interesting to see that this is staying in the news cycle and people are staying committed to it. I'm excited to see the results, and we're already seeing some results, some arrests, some cases being reopened. So it's exciting.
It is a very exciting time. And this is what has to happen. People need to speak up, and we need to come together and fight for these injustices, and going about in a non-violent way as much as possible. I am very happy with everyone coming together, and there were people of all walks of life here in Calgary. And there were families there with their small children. There were people in their 60s or 70s, white people, which I thought was nice to see, because I feel like older white people often get a bad rap because of certain things. But there was a lot of support going out. Black, Indigenous, Asian, white, everybody was there, and everybody was supportive, except for a few people, but
Oh,
the crowds silenced them and didn't let them get through,
oh,
and not enough people see them. So it was good.
cool.
So it's going well, and I'm very excited about where this hopefully goes.
Yeah, yeah, it could be really, really great. We could get out of 2020 in way better shape than we were before, which would be nice.
Exactly. Way better shape. And so now we're going to talk about some movies, because movies can be so helpful to people. And that's why I love movies. You have these great films that highlight tragic moments in history or important moments in history,
Mm.
famous people who've done a lot of good things. And then there's these movies that you can just go and escape. Of course, also acknowledge how stupid people can be.
For sure, for sure.
So here we are. Here we are talking about we're Jurassic Park films all week long. We're on to number 3, Jurassic Park 3. And this was a game changer. This came out in 2001. So we previously had 93, 97, and 2001. And then we didn't see anything till 2015.
This is a big gap.
So big gap, and a lot of people thought that this movie had killed the franchise, but I don't know. We're gonna get into it. What do you remember when this came out?
I think this was for me. This was I spent like a few summers, a few like great summers, sort of like when I was still sort of in high school, where yeah, I mean, because I'm not an athletic person, I went into the movie theater. So there were there were great summers where me and a buddy went to like every new movie on like a Friday afternoon. We were seeing them as soon as they were coming out, and I think this was one of them. But I must say, my recollection of it is not super strong. And I know we jumped off the last episode thinking things are going to be better, and we'll get to some of that. It's actually maybe better than I remember, which being a kid, I didn't see some of the seams, but now looking at films, and actually one of the director's movies in his on his resume is his second film was The Rocketeer, which I saw as a kid and I absolutely loved, and I'm terrified to watch it because of this reason, because I'm worried I'll see it and then it'll fall apart and it just won't hold up. So this is actually the reverse. Go ahead.
Well, while you're talking about that, yeah. So
Yeah.
Spielberg's gone.
Right.
Apparently Spielberg never. He's was like, make it your own. Don't hold it up to me. And they had a chair for him on set, but he never once showed up for set. To
Really,
this one,
never?
apparently.
Because he
But
was an executive producer.
never. He was executive producer. And there was he had some power and say still. But this is directed by Joe Johnston, who up until this point, as you mentioned, The Rocketeer, and afraid to watch it as an adult.
Yeah.
His other ones that he's known for are Jumanji and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids up until this point. So Rocketeer, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jumanji, all cult classics.
Yeah.
All ones that people have grown up with and loved. Maybe didn't hold up the best as an adult.
Right. And there's also The Pagemaster in there, which I remember sort of digging as a kid. Yeah. And then of course October Sky, which was like a huge critical hit. So yeah, I wonder. It's interesting. I didn't know that about Spielberg not showing up to set, and I wonder if that was maybe just out of respect because he's so seen as the father of this franchise that maybe he just didn't want to step on Joe Johnston's toes at all. And
that's what I think. I feel like he was just being respectful.
Right. Yeah, but I'll admit I hadn't really looked into Joe's resume until I sort of looked this up, and it was like, wow, he's directed some of my favorite films, Jumanji, like incredible.
Yeah, and I mean,
and, Captain America, the first Captain America movie.
Yeah, that was the other one I forgot about.
Kind
Captain America.
Yeah,
he doesn't actually like. And I mean, a lot of directors, big directors, don't really have a huge list, anyways. But
yeah,
Joe himself doesn't really have right now, as of 2020, he has, I think, like a dozen or so movies that he actually directed. He's involved as producer or worked on the
Right.
script,
Right.
but this is one of only like 12 he actually directed.
Right. So, speaking of the team behind the film, one of my favorite screenwriters of all time, and also a director in his own right, Alexander Payne, who a few years ago, more than a few years ago, now 2011, won an Academy Award for The Descendants, along with two other screenwriters who are also fantastic, and I love. But Alexander Payne's body of work is incredible as well, and I was a little shocked to see him on this. I mean, he's written some of my favorite films, like Sideways, for example, and directed. And so I was a little disappointed that the story wasn't a bit better. But maybe you have some insight into that, because I've heard that production on this was challenging.
Yeah, I feel like we need to kind of start with production and leading up to it,
Yeah.
getting into this film. So this was announced in 1998.
Oh, wow.
The project was greenlit, and of course, as you mentioned, 2001 is when it came out, summer 2001. So the first script that came out in was written by, I can't remember his name, but he doesn't get billing anyways.
Right.
But the first script was written, and the idea was a group of teenagers got marooned on this island, and this was going ahead for a bit, and then they kind
And
of
but
realized,
this has nothing to do with Crichton's books. Like, this is a totally new.
no,
Okay.
no, when they announced the third film, they said Crichton and Spielberg were going to work on it, but Crichton did not have a book, and he didn't end up actually doing anything to help with the script or story idea even. So
Okay.
it was just this other writer wrote the script about a bunch of teenagers marooned on the island trying to survive. Um, and one person at Universal said it was like basically like watching Friends with dinosaurs, and it just is not what people
Oh.
wanted to see.
All right. Huh.
um, so then the second script came out, and it was about there was two simultaneous stories happening. One was pterodons, the flying dinosaur that finally got his big role in this movie, escaped the island and were killing people on the mainland, but they weren't really sure what was happening. Meanwhile, Dr. Grant happened to be on a plane with Paul and his son and Paul's girlfriend and this other random girl and Paul's bodyguard Cooper and the pilots, and that crashes on the island, and then they're stuck on the island. So this was the script going forward. 5 weeks before the movie's about to start filming, Spielberg and Joe Johnston decided this script is not good,
Oh,
and
no.
they threw out the script 5 weeks before filming. They'd already spent $18 million.
So they've built the dinosaur. They have everything they need probably at this point,
They've
like
got things going on. Oh yeah, you've
sets
got
and
so much
studios,
happening.
and
You're
yeah.
5 weeks. Yeah, yeah. As a filmmaker, you need to book sites. You need to, they're filming on location. They're filming at Universal Studios.
And Stan is
They
building
have
these dinosaurs, and
yeah,
that doesn't take a couple of weeks. That takes months to build dinosaurs.
yeah. So here's where our first problem happens. Well, first they decided that they didn't like the way Grant got to the island, and they wanted to make it quicker. So the biggest problem, though, with Jurassic Park 3 and why it did not have the success that the other films ever had is they never had a completed script the entire filming.
Wow. And that's
There was
surprisingly
never a
not that uncommon. I just heard, and I just heard recently that the latest Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible Fallout, was very much the same way. They were sort of doing it by the seat of their pants, and I mean, and it worked out. Like, that's a great movie. I think that's a fantastic film, and so I mean, it's something about, like, when you reach the master level of filmmaking, and some people are there and some people are close to there, that you can sort of work on the fly like that when you really understand story really well. But this was maybe not the 100% result.
no, and I think the problem is, yeah, you get some actors who just they don't know their full motivation. They don't know what's going on. And when you're getting pages ahead of time, I mean, Scream 3 is another classic example where they were switching out the scripts all the time.
Right.
They were switching the killers. Nobody knew what was happening. But it adds to it. I think it's fun. But yeah, so that was kind of problems going into it. Right away,
Right.
you have these issues. But then, yeah, so now we've got a basic idea. Paul and Amanda Kirby, who are divorced, but unknown to the audience at that point, have lost their son, Eric, who was parasailing with Amanda's boyfriend, Ben, and crash land on the island. And so they trick Dr. Grant to going to the island. And so right away, I got to say, when Jurassic Park 3 came out, that for me was the real turning point in me realizing that these movies were an obsession for me.
Okay.
And I think one of the reasons was, as I was thinking about it, is that when Jurassic Park 3 came out, we had internet and it wasn't dial-up. So people could go on the internet all the time. And so there were real fan sites. And so I could go on every single day. And I guess at that point it would have been Ask Jeeves probably.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park. And I was trying to learn everything I could. And I was knowing everything and seeing all these stuff. I was watching the trailer over and over again.
Oh, sweet.
And so it was huge. Yeah,
oh, yeah, that's right. I remember when, this was sort of like, well, when would have been 99-ish, when when trailers first became like Apple had their website with trailers, and it was the Lord of the Rings trailer that was the first trailer that I became aware of that people were like have watched it over and over and over again, the months leading up to the film's release.
Yeah, that's just it. So I think this was an interesting point because this is where, and if it came out a few years earlier and we wouldn't have known all this behind the scenes stuff, we weren't being able to read about it, I think it would have been completely different. But yeah, for me, that was insane. And then we went down to California that summer. So when Jurassic Park 3 came out in theaters, so we got to, we went to Target in the States, and every time we went to Target, I looked for any Jurassic Park 3 toys I could find, and used all my money. I didn't spend anything at Disneyland or Universal Studios because I spent it all on the little toys and action figures at Target.
Right. That's awesome.
But it was great, and I remember one of the things I remember is seeing the novelization, like the junior novelization that they often come out with movies.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I saw that and I started reading it, and it started off with the scene with Alan visiting Ellie, but they don't make it clear that he's visiting her, and I didn't want to be spoiled anymore, so I closed it up. So I got really excited because Alan and Ellie are married and they have a kid.
Right. Oh no. No, yeah.
I mean, I want them to be together in this new movie.
Yeah, what a weird, sort of a weird choice. Although there's an interesting, I mean, and we'll get to it, but there's the fact that she is married to someone who is not him plays out in a way that I did not expect. I've been telling a friend that I've been talking about these films, and he sent over screen, and I mean, this is the first time I've really gone down the rabbit hole, and there's so many YouTube pages, so many people have done so much work around this franchise. It's pretty amazing. But somebody made a video, a Screen Rant, I guess, has a series called the pitch meeting for whatever movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen this? Yeah. So
they're fantastic.
Yeah, and just nails every weird plot moment, and totally covers what you were talking about last time. So the T-Rex went into the ship's control room, killed everyone, and then went back into the so yeah, this is another one, but yeah, I'm excited to get into it though. Are we do you want to dive into you're already talking about how
yeah, I guess let's dive into, I mean, I guess we'll start with the characters, is kind of what we like to do. And
yeah,
so
sure.
we mentioned Number 2, they brought back Ian Malcolm, but it didn't
Yeah,
really work because he wasn't the leading man. Alan
right,
Grant was the leading man.
right.
So now here
So
we have
now
it.
the triumphant return of Sam Neill.
Yes. So, what are your thoughts on Sam Neill returning as Alan Grant and his portrayal in this movie?
I mean, I think everything, pretty much everything Sam Neill is doing feels pitch perfect to me. Like I love watching Grant on either island, maybe the third island now. But yeah, I think he's just perfectly cast. I love his. It's a weird thing, but I love his wardrobe. Like he's just the hat, the plaid shirt. It's tucked in, except for at the end. I don't know why I noticed that. But he is just like in his element, right? Even though he doesn't want to be there, he is like and he's perfectly cast in that role. And I love William H Macy in this movie too. Actually, like he has a nice arc where he's this like schlubby. You know, this is right in the middle of William H Macy's phase of like dumb idiots or like gentle
Yes.
dummies kind of characters that he was playing.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So while you're speaking about that, that wonderful scene to really establish who Paul Kirby is when Alan and Billy go to confront him, and he's trying to put his backpack on.
yes, yes, totally, yeah. And they're like,
Just
I get,
trying
I
too
get,
weird.
I get the vibe that you didn't climb K2. Just so, what did you think
Yeah.
of Tia Leone though, or how do you say her name?
Um, yeah, I think it's I've heard Tay Leone and Tia Leone. I feel like the proper one is Tia Leone.
Okay.
Um, I think it was I think it was interesting. I got, here's the way I think about it though is I kind of liked that for this film there were people that weren't dinosaur people whatsoever. You still had Alan and Billy, and then as it
Yeah.
turned out, your son Eric is a dino nut and knows stuff.
Yeah.
But I like that there were just two normal people in this island.
Yeah. For sure.
Un- Unfortunately, until near the end, when Amanda, is the one who's like hands the eggs over, and she's very protective of her son, and she's a loving mother for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately her character when you went from Ellie Sattler, then to Sarah Harding, and to now Amanda Kirby, it's kind of setting it back. You had these very strong women right from the get go, and she's just screaming the whole time.
Yes. Yeah. 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 There. Yeah. It's a good point. We had sort of women who were at least had more agency, more involvement in moving the story forward. And the other thing about her performance, and if you don't have a script and you don't really know what you're doing, and you're in a humid jungle with bugs, or I know they were in studio for some of it too, for weeks and weeks on end, I just got the vibe that she wasn't having a very good time on set. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but I can't imagine that it would have been hard to sort of get frustrated with the amount of time that it takes to shoot these movies, and like running from nothing is also challenging.
Well, and I will point out, there's a quote from her that said, like, because apparently everybody got really bruised up in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that they used more makeup on her to cover up her actual bruises.
Right. Yeah, I mean
Because it is, I would say this is one of the more physically demanding for the actors. Most of them are always running, and unless you're getting eaten, like, the plane
the
sequence,
plane,
and then
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, there's a lot
the
of like, yeah,
water the water sequence, like
yeah,
there's a lot happening here for
for
them.
sure, for sure. Um, and then I mean, the, some great sort of, not great, but at least a piece of diversity in the second film. In the third film, we're back, unfortunately, to one black character who dies, which is unfortunate, especially through today's lens, and certainly has been, and obviously this is a product of the time, but I think it's not unfair to sort of slam it for that decision. There's very little diversity, although Alessandro Nivola playing Billy, that suggests to me that he is perhaps I don't know where from, but South American of some sort, maybe.
Yeah, so we got Billy, who was, a way to breathe in some new life. I don't know if there was any thought that he was gonna go somewhere further with the character after this,
They
but
must have,
he's
right? Like, we'll talk about how things end, but I feel like there must have been like a handing
yeah,
of the torch plan or something.
because he's interesting, and he brings in. It's nice because without it being a like surprise or forced relationship with like, oh, this is Alan's brother or his son, they just have a very strong familial friendship, um, and so that's what kind of is interesting when because it's this different age group as well. So Alan thinks that everybody who did this is just awful, and then the fact that Billy went and stole the eggs in order to fund their research, um,
Yeah,
is a nice little dynamic that they threw in there.
it is, and we'll get into it, but it actually has maybe one of the best moments in the plot is sort of a result of that, and I feel like I'm being mean to the film, but I want to be clear that I really enjoy it, and I'm going to talk about where I think it like turns on a dime and suddenly becomes a fantastic film. But we'll get into that. Is who have we missed? Some of the mercenary folks.
Yeah, so we got Cooper, who just is pointless and just is just to kill off somebody else right away.
And apparently
Um,
can tell.
but then you have yeah, and then you have amazing and well known in the sense that he's a character actor. You have
Character actor Michael
Michael
Jeter, yeah,
Jeter as
who I love.
Udesky. Yeah, he's fantastic. Been
The
in
Green
so many
Mile,
different
of course.
things. Green Mile, Patch Adams. He often plays
Yes.
similar type characters.
Yeah.
Um, this is one of the first ones where like he doesn't have any type of like problems.
Yeah, yeah. Although I would be curious to like talk to him about his performance, because his character was weird, and there's the sort of throwaway line where he's like, "Oh yeah," like where we find out that Paul is not really a rich dude. He just owns a
Yeah,
tile and paint store. And then there's a very brief scene, almost a throwaway scene between Udesky and Paul, where they're both like, "Oh, you're not who you said you were. I'm not who I said I was. I'm not really a mercenary. I'm more of a booking agent," he says. And just the way he runs around the island, he sort of seems like completely out of place, and he's flailing his arms around, and I'm curious if there was more to what he was doing, because it's sort of distracting. But anyway, we don't see him for that long, as with all of the mercenaries, but he is there for a good reason. It's just his character just felt weird to me. I don't know why. Like, why not just make him a real mercenary? What was the point of that discussion? I'm not sure.
yeah. I don't know. And then I guess our last real character is Trevor Morgan, who plays Eric, who somehow survived 8 weeks on the island.
Yep. A little bit of a stretch,
Um,
but I think they gave us enough sort of kernels of idea that I could let that one go.
They do. Amanda and Paul are talking and saying like how resourceful he is and like how tough it was to
Of course,
ground
yeah.
him, and they don't elaborate on it. And like people are resilient,
Hmm.
and I who know, and we established that he's read the books
Yeah,
that Alan wrote and what Ian wrote, so he knows like stuff. But
yeah.
I would say um one of the more useful kids that the Jurassic series ever had.
Probably yes, and actually quite a great performance. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of him in his career. I was pretty happy.
Yeah, no, he was great. I think he did. I think one of the things people would recognize him from, he plays a young Dennis Quaid at the beginning of The Rookie, the baseball movie.
Okay.
But yeah, he was around that era. He did a lot of stuff, but he hasn't really done much as of late.
Yeah, I mean, and
But
that's
I
something that
mean,
seems to happen with the child actors. They often uh, their appearance can change quite a bit, and then they've lost that recognition that they once had, which I think is the case for Trevor.
so we have a small cast this time. We have the small
Yes.
cameo by Laura Dern, who at least Laura Dern, unlike Tim and Lex in Lost World,
Yes.
She doesn't just vanish, and she's
Right.
very important.
She's
In
there
case
for a
of this,
reason.
but we have a small cast, and again, what I like about this and the first movie is that it's more intimate. When they're as opposed, we talked about this with when it comes to Avengers style destruction,
Mm-hmm.
and you see so much. There's still something more interesting to me and more intense when it's just a small group of people trying to survive. Um,
Yes, agreed.
and so I think they were smart to continue to just keep it on the island for this movie and just
Yes,
make it a small amount of people.
totally. The yeah, I mean, the second one we had sort of this wonderful collection of just random mercenary types that we could just kill a lot, and what that sort of did was it sort of made it sort of lessened the impact of the kills, which have always been pretty up close and personal, even if they were somewhat hidden. Um, when a dinosaur is is killing a human, it's a pretty visceral thing. So yeah, I think there was some damage done to that experience just by virtue of having a ton of extras on the island that could just get stepped on or chewed up, and it wasn't as impactful. Um,
Yeah.
but one other character I wanted to mention. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about when I say Hannah, but are you a Star Trek fan?
Wait, who am I thinking?
It's such a weird throwaway thing, but apparently Ellie is writing a book, and
Yeah.
Linda Park is playing Hannah as her assistant. Has like two lines. She's on the phone. She's like, "Oh, this guy wants to talk to you," and she's like, "Duh, I'm not taking out that quote." Okay, that's her whole appearance. But she's Ensign Ensign Hoshi Sato in Enterprise. She's in the entire series of Enterprise, and she's the communications officer. She's very important. I'm not that big a Star Trek fan, but I was like, what? What is she doing here? So random. It's her second role ever, I discovered. But that does take place in the scene that you were talking about, where okay, Grant and Ellie, they have a kid.
And I should mention, and we haven't mentioned this at all in the series yet. So Ellie, when Hannah comes out with the phone and says it's
Yeah.
your editor,
Yeah.
we need to get rid of that Jack Horner quote,
Yeah.
and she says we're not losing those. So Jack Horner is a paleontologist who did a lot of stuff on these movies to
Oh,
add the
real life
realism.
person.
Yeah, and he's actually who Alan Grant is based on.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was
See, I
a
thought
nice little
I
mention of
yeah, I thought I
him.
found a little Easter egg, but you just one upped me. Um, but anyway, in that scene, of course, it's not Alan and Ellie's kid.
No, it's some other buddy. It's her kid, but not his, and it's a way to set up that, which was an interesting character point. I guess it makes most sense to get Alan alone without Ellie to the island, um,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
set
true.
them up because he did seem to. At the end of Jurassic Park, we saw, oh, maybe he could have children. Like he seems to like them. He can take
Right.
care of
Yeah.
them. But then he doesn't have that now,
Yeah.
and it allows. I guess I don't know. I'm not clear about, but I feel like they must have shot the Alan and Ellie stuff at the end when they came up with an ending,
Right.
because
Maybe.
spoiler alert, she'll be the one to save them.
Right.
But we also use this opening scene to establish. Well, no, not opening scene. We've already got Ben and Eric crashing on the island after the boat gets attacked.
Right.
But we use the scene to reiterate what happened, what we started with Jurassic Park, which is to say how smart the raptors are and
Right.
how things that continue, raptors would be the dominant species, not
Right.
humans.
Yes. There's some good foreshadowing there in this movie, and that's one of maybe the best transitions, I think, or thematic elements that oh man, I can't keep all the titles straight. The Lost World, the no,
Yeah,
yes,
the Jurassic World.
Jurassic World. where they are like, okay, so they've taken this idea from the third one and expanded on it, and like the intelligence of the raptors is just sort of commonplace in that film, and it's so well set up by this film. But yeah, that certainly is pretty well established through his conversation or the talk that he's giving at the university or wherever he's at. But before we skip over the parasailing thing, I just want to hear your thoughts on what happened to the boat, because of course they look down and the guys are gone.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it was the Spinosaurus. You know, later in the movie we see that he survives in water. New foundings, fun fact, as I was, making sure I knew all my stuff, new findings over the past few years is realizing the Spinosaurus might have been more like a crocodile and spent a lot more time in water than in land.
Okay.
And in fact, wouldn't go on land very often. So I'm assuming it's a Spinosaurus. However, I don't know if it makes sense that the Spinosaurus would have swam that far out.
Right. And I don't think it could keep up with the boat based on what we saw it doing in the river in the water either.
Yeah, so I think it's supposed to be the Spinosaurus, but I just don't think they really set it up well enough.
Right.
Because at this point, there's no mention of the Mosasaurus. And if the Mosasaurus was there, it was clearly swimming freely in the water. Any other dinosaur would have swam freely, clearly would have swam for a while and could have shown up on mainland. So I think we're going with the Spinosaurus.
But what about the other possibility? Is that would not be the pterosaurs? I don't know why. Pterodons, yes, thank you. Pterodactyls is what I would call them, but that's obviously wrong.
I know. Well, thank you, Power Rangers. That's the one we all know is pterodactyls.
Right. That's right.
So this is where there's some things that contradict each other. But in the end of The Lost World, the very end of The Lost World, when Hammond's giving his speech on the television and they show the dinosaurs living in harmony, you see the pterodons flying freely. But in this movie, we've set it up that they've been stuck inside the bird cage the whole time.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll get there. Of course, we see that Amanda fails to properly lock the door, and obviously there's sorry. I thought I got disconnected there. Yeah, so she doesn't close that door properly.
I would talk about myself if I need to. It was just me. I'll just talk.
But I feel like it has been established, or does it not matter that they could? I mean, could they not get under the water there? I feel like anyway, there's maybe there are some that are trapped in that bird cage and some that are just not.
Yeah, because they do show them diving in, and they seem to be type of birds that or creatures that can dive and dive enough to go underneath. So I'm not sure entirely. It is one of those things that these movies, you kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say that they're smart movies. But the first two have a lot of smart things involved with them, and they do kind of establish that this is a smart world. So that's a disappointment right off the get-go, is that it's like, well, this isn't very clear what's happening here. Is it like?
But I do wonder if maybe there was the mist or the cloud cover that happened. I thought maybe that was sort of an indicator that it was the pterodons, because they're in the mist and they thrive sort of in the mist in their cage thing. And I was like, oh, they're actually, maybe that's what they're saying, but it's not quite clear enough. It's true, because why would they not go to Costa Rica if they could just fly out? I don't know. But of course,
and
that was sort of the idea of the previous script, right?
Well, and the Spinosaurus as well, would have probably taken the boat under. He would have gone up and grabbed them and probably that's not a big boat. Even if he got his arms and a little bit of his body weight on it, would have sunk the boat enough.
Right.
So that leads into them parasailing, and then we had this interesting shot. There's a lot of, going back to Alexander Payne as one of the writers, he
Yeah.
said that there was a bit more humor in it, but they have this, and I don't know, I assume it was a script, but then it was also the director did. I love the idea that it went from this island, which we knew had dinosaurs on it, to kind of make it seem like it was this classic King Kong um, fake dinosaurs, and then it was Ellie's son playing with the dinosaurs and transitioned
Right.
into it being the backyard there,
Right.
which I thought was an interesting choice, but I kind of liked it. It's a little too on the nose, but
Yeah. Okay, so here's another question I have. Why does Billy seem to know Kirby, like Paul Kirby? Like, there's
okay, yes, I feel like they were planning something. I feel
yeah.
like
It
Paul
made
was
me
there
feel like there was a
earlier.
deleted scene of some kind. Like,
As far as I know, there wasn't, but there, or who knows, there was probably stuff scripted that they never
right,
got around to
right.
film. Or
Yeah, yeah.
the Jurassic Park movies are actually pretty notorious for having some deleted scenes that have never seen the light of day,
Oh,
actually
really?
filmed.
Huh.
Yeah, so there is probably something there because it definitely seems like Paul was there earlier and spoke to Billy because it's very
Right.
clear Billy is all about making money for their digs, and he thinks that
Yes.
Paul's the one to do it. That's
Yeah.
why because it doesn't really make sense why Billy would have gone to meet the Kirbys with Alan that night at the bar.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And then of course he goes for the eggs later, and he's I don't know, he's just a bit shifty, and I just wonder if they were like if they maybe shot those scenes and they were like, oh, you're a double agent, or you're working for Dotson or, or something, or
Yeah.
InGen, or he's a double agent in some capacity. It feels like that was the plan, and then maybe they shifted gears because they were writing the script while they were shooting. I don't know. But it is
Well, yeah,
odd
and
they know each other.
yeah, it definitely seems that way. So um, I think for sure there's been some communication between them beforehand,
Yeah,
and so it's enough to. I mean, anybody can do anything for money. So I guess Alan thinks that he can just fly over the island, and that's gonna be it.
right.
So I guess at this point we have to talk about probably one of the most well-known scenes in all five movies.
Yes.
One of the ones that gets the most memes and gifs, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
and that
It
is
is
the
so out of place. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah. We've got a dream sequence
Yeah.
and a raptor to say Alan.
And again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's where Billy's sitting, right? So I'm like, oh, Billy is the raptor in the dream, maybe? Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm out on a limb on that one, but it is super weird. It is super out of place. But also it sort of feels like there's another moment later that yeah, is maybe more of the comedic moments. Like, were they playing this for a laugh? Um, and so
I don't think this scene was supposed to be comedic. I think the idea behind it was to showcase that Alan is nervous and scared to go back, and he's terrified of these raptors because
right,
he knows how evil they are. Unfortunately, by making it say Alan, I think took away the moment.
yeah, yeah,
If they had just done this exact same scene and shot, and but had like this raptor like coming from the cockpit, I think
sure, sure,
that would have gotten it across, but
yeah,
having a dinosaur say an actual word.
yeah,
Ugh.
a little weird, yeah, for sure. Um, and then there's the camera bag. Like, they really very specific. Again, it's like it made me wonder if it was some sort of like maybe it had a trick compartment as well, sort of throwing back to the shaving can or something. But they do take special care, like, throughout the film, to like show you the camera bag, um, and like there's obviously like, okay, there's something going on with this camera bag, um, and really it just becomes a transportation item for the eggs, which we see later. But yeah, they really want us to know about it and see it, and then there's Billy has a weird line about how the strap saved my life at one point, and Grant, like, I don't pay you much, but can't you afford a better bag than that? But it's just a normal bag. Like, there's There's nothing weird or old about it. It's just a normal camera bag.
No, and I gotta establish what we're talking about. That is, Billy gets the foreshadowing of his past that helps save the day later on. So in the first movie, you have Lex mentioning that she's a she's a hacker and she makes computers.
Yes.
Saves the day. Second film, you have Kelly, who mentions gymnastics, and she does a wonderful gymnastics routine to kill a raptor. And as he's talking about the bag, he talks about parasailing.
Right.
And then he parasails later. And
right. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I actually thought that was fantastic. We'll get to that, but so they land.
So yeah, so we're, I was gonna take note of the time, but one thing this movie does fantastically is we are already into chaos. We're already into dinosaurs. I think we're like 20 minutes in at this point.
You are spot on. In fact, I've got it up here, and Grant is sort of waking up at after being knocked out, so that he won't put up a fuss about landing. Right at the 20-minute mark, I'm seeing it. So you nailed it.
Woo! So we're establishing. Well, we haven't seen the new dinosaur yet, but there's little hints very quickly that, like, oh, it sounds bigger. What is it? Quick glances of it, but we're causing trouble right away. So this movie, I will say right now, like, this is more so an action movie, and than the other two. The other two were definitely about something. Lost World became a bit more actiony, but this one is an action movie. It is all about these dinosaurs and crazy stuff that happens.
It's true. We even got, like, right after the since I have it up here, I right after Grant's speech about the intelligence of raptors, we do have a quick scene where we get to see the mercenaries practicing with their weapons. They blow up a small plane to show, and so there's already action right at the sort of around the 10-minute mark there, and then here, this is another sort of weird moment where we've sort of established where one of these mercenaries is. His name's Cooper, right? And we hear some gunfire. Things are going bad. Nash and Udesky are like, get back in the plane. We're getting out of here. And then somehow Cooper has teleported in front of them, way far on the other side of the runway, and he's there asking them not to leave him behind, which is actually a pretty intense moment.
Oh yeah, no, it's because Nash has already begun takeoff. Like he
can't stop, like he says.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, what? And then you're like, oh wait, did we lose we lost a character already? Like, we're 20 minutes into this.
Yeah.
And then we quickly lose Nash right after, like, so we crash, and that is an intense crash. There's no surviving that. They made sure to destroy that plane before even the Spinosaurus gets to it, just right through the trees.
Yeah, there's no flying out of this place now, and it's pretty impressive. For the most part, it's pretty well done. But again, this is our first. I'm just before they hit the Spinosaurus as they're trying to take off, and that's what causes the crash. And everything, I thought it was blood maybe that gets sprayed up on the, but I think maybe it's fuel, because Udesky says something about the fuel line being cut or something.
No, I always thought it was blood too, but maybe.
Yeah. So the plane, sort of crashes into the jungle, and then there's, most of it's good, but there is some really rough CG there as well, unfortunately, which is sort of the fuselage of the plane, looking banged up and a little bit cartoony to me. But there is a nice sort of moment where the plane's sort of teetering on the tree, and Amanda, is that T-Alienese?
Yeah.
Amanda sort of sees the eye of the Spinosaurus, and then she's the only one as it tilts back, and that was a very nice moment. I like that. Yeah,
and so here we're getting this little bit of humor. I'm sure the Spinosaurus isn't like, oh, I'm going to duck away so like the other humans don't see me and they think she's crazy. But it's fun, and it just worked. and now you've got this bit of a like, oh, what's happening? A little bit of like a Jaws homage, so you're like, you can't quite see the creature and it's
Yeah.
attacking, um, and we and then it just decides to attack. We make a moment as well, to acknowledge that Paul hands over his phone to
I was
Nash.
going to bring that up as well. Yes, and that's actually, and they do a really good job of sort of tracking that, and that's one of the most memorable things for me watching it when I was younger, was hearing that that ringtone.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of tracking the phone, and of course Nash puts it in his sort of front pocket, and there's a specific very quick shot to let you know that, yeah, Nash had the phone on him when he got sort of ripped out of the plane and presumably eaten.
Yeah, and so now we've got two casualties. We've been on the island for a whopping 2-3 minutes, and we've lost, two people already.
You're right.
And
Two dead already, and
here
that's pretty early on, if you exclude sort of the opening scenes of the previous
yeah,
films. That
yeah,
does not happen that early, for sure. And it speaks to what you
no,
said about it being an action movie more than anything else.
yeah, and so then we've got this, um, this sequence of the Spinosaurus trying to get at them, rolling the plane around. They the Spinosaurus animatronic I want to mention is one of the biggest ones that's ever been made. It was 25 feet tall, 40 feet long, and they've also like made sure to create like a separate leg, so that scene where you saw the leg step down on the plane, and I saw behind the scenes where they just showed like they had like hydraulics that made the chairs go down, but they did as much practical effects in this scene, which I think worked really well for it.
Right, right. And it's actually quite extended. Like when you talk about action again, like we're really like, I won't dig up the times, but like, this leads into a scene with the T-Rex, which leads into more running, and so there's actually quite a bit of action here before we get on sort of another moment of reprieve.
Yeah, it's you don't get a breather until until they like
They go back. I think they go back to the plane to
yeah.
to salvage what they can. Um, but one thing, I don't know if this is right, and sometimes subtitles are wrong, and it pisses me off, to be honest with you. But I in the subtitles when I watched it, it said when they were trying to make the call to jump back to the satellite phone, someone, either Udesky or Nash, says all circuits are busy. And I was like, what? Why? You don't need to say all circuits are busy. We established in the last movie that the satellite phone works sometimes and it doesn't other times. You don't have to tell me that all the satellite phones in the world, all the circuits are busy. You're in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, that was a silly line to me. I don't know if it's real or not, or if it was just in my. I thought that was funny. But the
No,
other thing
I do remember that. I do remember hearing that voice that
yeah,
saying
it's weird. So this is a big question I have for you.
Okay.
Spinosaurus kills Nash. The rest of the team sort of get away somehow. I don't know. Some decisions are silly to me. I don't know why they run into a clearing, but then they run back into the tree line. And then we think we're okay. We think we've lost him, and we run into a T-Rex. And this
Yeah.
is a big. I've heard that this is a big for like super fans, such as yourself. There's a big sort of dethroning of the T-Rex moment here from the Spinosaurus, and I wonder how you feel about that.
So first of all, I want to establish. I remember opening weekend. On the front page of the Calgary Herald was like in this edition, and sure enough, there was like probably a good little like advertisement about Jurassic Park 3 coming into theater, Battle of the Titans or whatever it was titled. And sure enough, you go to the entertainment section, the full front page of the entertainment section of the Calgary Herald, and I'm pretty sure most other major newspapers around the world
Yeah.
was talking about this battle scene, and the big
Oh,
photo
okay.
of the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus facing off. So this is massive. The deleted scenes have the battle going on a lot longer
Oh, really?
than what was shown in theaters.
Okay.
And I don't know, we've just established how great the T-Rex is,
Right.
and to lose it so quickly, and I'll talk about this when it comes to Jurassic World, is that, yeah, now we're about, probably 35 minutes into it, and we've killed off the T-Rex.
Right. Right.
And
Which,
so,
from a story perspective, tells us, okay, the Spinosaurus even scarier than the T-Rex, even more powerful than the T-Rex, and
yeah,
that is
even better.
actually accurate, as far as I know. Is that right?
Yeah, and the Spinosaurus is bigger. They lived in different eras, so Jack Horner actually said was like we aren't really sure how these two would have faced off
Ah,
against
okay,
each
okay.
other, but it is bigger, and sometimes it just you need to get at it. But there's also a lot of talks, a lot of fans like to say in theories that this is a younger T-Rex because he didn't seem
Oh,
quite as big as other T-Rexes, but
okay.
I think it was important that we had this scene, and it does establish dominance. Really,
Totally,
simple as it
totally
is.
does. I was,
Um,
yeah, I was also, what we learn, I think, in this film about the VFX is that, you know, in the dark and the rain, these dinosaurs look fantastic, and we get one of those scenes in this film. It reminds me of the first T-Rex paddock escape in Jurassic Park. Um, this battle is much more in the daylight. We're seeing a lot more of the seams of the film. I'm actually pretty impressed with it for the most part. One thing that really fell flat for me on this particular battle, this big moment, is the sound. I mean, we had these brilliant sounds of dinosaurs that, like you said, came from random places and brilliant Foley artists. And this whole battle, the roaring just felt very stock to me. And again, I don't want to over analyze, but um, I've had the luxury and the joy of being in the room sort of for a sound mix on a film, and these creators have obviously Foley artists, but they also have this library of effects. And I worry that maybe they relied too heavily on some of the stuff that they had already recorded previously, or it just felt like, yeah, I don't know. It was like, I don't think it happened, but it sort of felt like maybe we were hearing even the same sound effect multiple times. I don't think that's the case, but they were very similar. That was, I think that's a big part of it. Sound does so much for any film. And if you've got those real sounding, or at least believably real sounds happening, and they're unique, and actually with the raptors, sound is so important in this film on a story level. It just felt weird that this was a big moment. We're losing the T-Rex, and it wasn't quite as poignant or as well done as it has been in the past, so that was too bad.
yeah, I would say, while we're on the subject of sound and like CGI, I would say that one of the things that this movie does really great is they did use a lot of practical animatronics, especially with the
Hmm.
dinosaurs that we were seeing frequently,
Yes,
like the Spinosaurus and the Raptors.
the raptors a
And
lot were clearly, yeah,
yeah,
real,
and they
on
were
on camera.
fantastic. There were men in raptor legs, like walking at times, like the shots.
Wow.
So they were fantastic. The CGI um, does yeah the does not is not as amazing in certain scenes. One of the ones that does not hold up great is when they're sailing in the boat and we get the classic Jurassic Park music, and the dinosaurs all come into the river bend, and it's this
Right.
nice, beautiful scene. The sun's up, and yeah, that the Brachiosaurus, brings its head down.
Yeah, yeah,
That is not great CGI
yeah.
compared to
That's
other
true. That's
Jurassic
true.
movies.
And again, it's like, it's this the clever idea of like, let's not show the audience every little detail, because then you start to see the seams, and that's a great point. Like, that Brachiosaurus head comes right in, and it's cool to see, and it's sort of intense, but it's also like, why is it red? And I'm starting to ask questions about it that I shouldn't be asking.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean,
And then we
it's
had,
still quite an achievement.
yeah, they did great stuff. It just didn't hold up quite as well. And then yeah, the sounds like the battle for sure. And then I do want to note that although there are some classic Jurassic Park sounds in it, scores, John Williams did not actually score this
Oh,
film.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they
Okay.
had somebody else, but
Hmm.
so does sound slightly different.
Yeah.
But they kept enough of the John Williams, I know, playbook, I guess, which I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
works for it.
Well, and this is a challenge that anybody who is maybe taking on a new role, even like someone like an art director. I know Stan, when it comes to the animatronics, was back for this film, but new director, new writers, a lot of people in new positions, and it's always tough to be like, okay, we've got to pay homage to the greatness of this franchise, but we also have to find new things, and I don't know that there was anything iconic that was found, but at least when it comes to the score, really really nice moments of like not overusing the original score. Really, I thought it was really well placed. Nothing in the new score that felt like as huge and iconic and great, but certainly nothing that was a detractor either, which is good.
Yeah. Um, okay, so we've got them, they reveal what's happening. They're there to save their kid. And
Yeah, and this is
Alan
this is where some of the story, like some of those YouTube videos have dug into some of the challenges of this. And again, that funny pitch meeting video made a great point that you might think that the Kirbys are actually the human antagonist of the film, being that they've tricked everyone into coming. They don't actually have any money, and nobody took any down payments up front. But the other great thing that they sort of reveal is or that revealed was that there's always been sort of a human antagonist in these films, and so this is the first film where the dinosaurs are really the only bad guys, as far as I know.
yeah, and you
Unless
know what, I
unless
gotta
Billy.
say, who knows? He definitely has some things that doesn't work for him. I gotta say, you know, story wise, to trick Grant to go to the island makes sense. We want to see Alan Grant. We want to see him on the island.
Totally, I can
It's the
get by that.
it's the same reason why they did not have any of the original cast members other than BD Wong return to Jurassic World, because even though it was a fully functioning theme park at this point and it seemed to be going well, they said it didn't make sense for any of these. Why would any of these people want to go to this
That's true.
island? It would have
That's
been
true.
PTSD. So
For sure.
Ian went because he went to save his girlfriend. Alan thought he was just going to fly high above the island, and that was it.
And fund his
So
dig
you
for
had to
10 years.
exactly worth it. Why not? Let's just
Right.
go and look down there and see what you can see.
Unfortunately, the
So
exact same motivation as Jurassic Park, but whatever.
yeah. So it didn't. So the story wise, it works. And yeah, like I said, I like the idea of it being these people who are just everyday people. With it being Amanda and Paul, that they don't know dinosaurs whatsoever.
Right.
Paul says
Right.
that the speck of spot or whatever comes back to get
Oh yeah,
you.
that's right.
It's fun and it's interesting. But it's just a fun action movie. I want to say, like, really, I feel like I was thinking about this more and more this one. And if you view it, and why I think I love it so much, or why I appreciate it, if you watch the MCU movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for the people who aren't aware,
Yeah.
you watch those, they all kind of have some different feels. They have the same basic ideas and structures, but you have Spider-Man: Homecoming, which is a throwback to '80s teen movies, and it's like a teen movie, but he's a superhero. And you've got
Yeah.
Ant-Man, which is Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd, but as a superhero. And then you
Right.
have more serious ones like Winter Soldier, um, and more intense ones going on like Thor: Dark World. So this one, if you view it in the entity as something still a part of that universe, but in a different feel to it. I think that's what works. So it's, you know, a family and a couple strangers um, in this action dinosaur movie, and that's the fun part about it. And you watch it
Totally.
like this,
Totally.
and you see the raptors seemingly very smart, and we don't see them right away. We see their eggs,
Hmm.
but we still don't see them for quite a bit,
Right.
uh, which adds this element of, you know, going back to Spielberg and Jaws and seeing less of it. And when they finally get to the command center, why do I say command center? I don't think that's what it is. I just think Power Rangers. I've got Power Rangers on the brain. Um, but
The
when we
compound
get
or
there, and yeah, the compound. Thank you. We get there and we see that there's that great shot that gives me chills. Is when they first, that wonderful comedic moment where Tay Leone picks up the phone just to see if it's
yes.
working.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you know what? I would.
Oh, of
What if?
course. Absolutely. I was right there with them. I was like, give it a go. Why not?
Yeah. And so then they walk away and the camera's still there, and then you see that raptor move in the
Dude,
background.
I was gonna bring this shot up as well. That's one of the most and I didn't even think, but that is our first look at a raptor, which is it's way in the distance, way out of focus, and it's so well done that it's almost like you ask yourself, did I just see that? Because
Yeah.
it's and that yeah, because it's so brief. And this is where things are getting really good in this film. Like this is fine. This is the spot where it sort of turns back to like, oh man, remember when Jurassic Park was really great? Because if you were to watch them all back to back, it sort of feels like, okay, as soon as the cliff scene is done and we reunite with the InGen team in Jurassic Park 2,
Yeah.
that's where things start to fall apart. This is
Yeah.
where the whole franchise gets back on the rails for me, because they've just somehow, prior to this, replayed what's on the camera using Duracell batteries from
Oh yeah.
from
Oh, how did I forget that?
I know
Oh.
you don't go past that. And again, I wonder if there was something deleted in that moment, because you do see I replayed this a few times, and you do see like these two yellow wires under the thing, and I was like, oh, maybe he jerry rigged some sort of power thing using wires, and it's like, but the way they've cut it, it certainly looks like, yeah, I'll just use my Duracell batteries
Yeah.
from my flashlight to power this camera. A
Yeah.
bit silly, but that's
Yeah.
the last one. That's the last, like, okay, this is but this movie picks up from here, I think, and I'm going to be much less critical, because there's lots of fun stuff to talk about after that moment.
And then, because not only that, and they just, and again, like they they have these funny moments, but they work. And it again showcase who Paul is, you know, trying to find change for the vending machine.
Yes, yes, exactly, yeah, yeah.
Then Billy just kicks in. But
And then he
but
tries to
right
kick it
after
in
that,
himself when it doesn't go so well.
yeah. So it's grounded in reality, like the funny moments, picking up the phone, trying to count change because you're Paul. But right after those moments, there's a great line, and I just think it's so. I love it so much, and it's by Dr. Grant, and so I think that's why I love it even more. But Amanda says, "This is how you create dinosaurs," and Alan says, "No, this is how you play God." And I just
Yes, yes.
love that line, and I think it's one of the most powerful lines in all the
So good.
movies.
So good. So true. And what's interesting about this, and maybe you can tell me what's canon and what's not, because this is I had some more time today, and I ended up, like I said, doing a little bit more research than I usually do. And but I guess there's some thought that this particular lab was perhaps in use after the events of the previous two films, but that it had also been abandoned for some reason, and that perhaps DB Wong's character was leading another sort of incarnation of dinosaur creation, and that's why we have the Spinosaurus, which we had not heard of previously.
So Spinosaurus never mentioned in Jurassic Park or 2. There was never
Right.
any mention, never on the list there, and they released lists online as well and stuff to show you what dinosaurs the park was supposed to have or had.
Right.
And there was never any mention of Spinosaurus. So the beauty of the Jurassic World series and furthering more is giving some answers to things that we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when Jurassic World came out, the Maserati group is the one who bought InGen, and they gave a little bit of history. So
Right.
we've in this, and that again, we're talking 2015 is when Jurassic World came out. They've established that Hammond is already deceased by this point. By the time
Right.
this movie takes place, Jurassic Park 3, there's Hammond's no longer living, and
And
he has
of
given it
course,
over.
the actor has also passed away, I believe, at this point.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So he's passed away as well. So Maserati has purchased InGen, and so still no mention of Spinosaurus. Jurassic World, there's one moment where there's like a nod to Spinosaurus, but we still don't see anything, and we haven't seen anything
Oh,
in Fallen Kingdom.
I'm gonna have to keep my eyes open for
But
that. I don't remember that.
it's good. It's a good one too.
Okay.
So Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom came out, and they did great marketing. And one of the things they did in Fallen Kingdom, Claire, Bryce Dallas Howard character, is part of the dinosaur protection group.
Right.
They're trying to save the dinosaurs. So they created an actual website that is still functioning. So you can go on it today, people, and go dinosaurprotectiongroup.com. It's a real fully
So cool.
functioning website.
So
And they
cool.
make it seem as if this is a real thing. And they give you all the facts about presenting it. And they do reveal on this website, when doing research and everything like that, reading through it, that prior to this movie, InGen did go back to this island and created 4 new dinosaurs.
Oh.
Before they hadn't done. So Spinosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Corydosaurus, and I forget the 4th one. The 4 dinosaurs that weren't on original's list. And only a few of them were allowed to go to keep it hush-hush, and they bred them, and they studied them for about another 9 months. And some of them were moved to be back to the first island, which is where Jurassic Park and Jurassic World take place. This one takes place on the second island. So in 2018, we got the answer that InGen did go and make this Spinosaurus, and then just left it there.
Okay. So that's not rumor or fan theory. That's canon. Is that
Yeah,
DB,
officially canon.
What's DB Wong's character? Like he's
Henry Wu, Dr. Henry Wu.
Right. Who certainly later on reveals himself to be a villain, but is sort of the architect and real villain of the whole franchise in many ways. And now I'm learning even more about his activities. It is a cool world to think about. Like when you see some of the infrastructure that they walk into in the compound, it's like, man, there must have been, maybe hundreds or at least many people working on these things, and it somehow kept secret, and that's a cool, fascinating vibe. But yeah, like I said,
I think it plays to why the Spinosaurus is after them so much, is because really probably did not get that much interaction with humans in these creatures, so it'd be confused.
Right.
So yeah, here we got at this compound, which clearly did seem as if they had been there recently.
Yes. And you're right. And this is where this, and you're right. What a great line from Grant about playing God. It's a bit of a goofy moment when the raptor is sort of behind the tube, with the fetuses that are in all these tubes. When I watched that, I wasn't like, it's not smart enough to know that it's pretending to be in one of these things, but maybe it was sort of fascinated by what it could see through looking at. So I don't slam it too much for that. It's a bit of a goofy moment, but again, like now we're really cooking, because it chases them into the sort of the kennel area where presumably like smaller dinosaurs were kept when they were sort of growing. And this is a great sequence with the gate door and the raptor pushing and creating these corners that humans had to stay in, and then pushing back, and it was trapped. And then of course there's the great moment, which we didn't talk about, 3D printer in this movie before 3D printers were a thing. Billy has a resonating chamber and we know, or at least Grant says, wow, it's trapped, but it's calling for help. And it's another great moment where he's like, he's a paleontologist still. He's running for his life, but he's still very curious and interested
Exactly.
in
They have to grab him. They're like, no,
yeah.
come on, like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, yeah.
stop it, because he's so fascinated by it.
Totally.
And so, we going back, we talked about how the plane crashes and then it's just action scene, action after scene, and then we had a bit of a break, and now we have them being chased into the cages and then
Right back
escaping from
into
the
it.
cages and then right into the herd of dinosaurs,
Yeah, yeah. It is a
and then
fast
we're split
movie.
up.
And is it the shortest
Yeah,
movie? We were talking about how the last one was the longest.
yeah.
It's
Every single
actually
one is over 2 hours. This one is just over an hour and a half.
right. And it's actually, if you don't include the credits, it's only 84 minutes long or so of actual screen time. And yeah, it's a really fast pace, which is great. And you're right, they're back into this herd, which again, to me, this scene played out a little weird to me, because it feels like the dinosaurs that they're what are the dinosaurs that they're running with, they're trying to hide in the herd of, they're
I think they're with the like Corythosaurus or something like that.
right, but they've got the pompadour is what
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what
the
the guy in the
pompadour,
last film said. And
Elvis.
so yeah. So the only problem I had with that was that they are obviously much faster than these humans, and I'm sure they would have outrun them, and they would be alone in the clearing
it's
again.
not the it's not the best. It's definitely one of those scenes where it's indicated that we threw a CGI in afterwards, because it's you know just, oh, somebody's tumbling and tripping, or they're
Yeah,
going like this. Like, it's not the best action to CGI going on there.
right.
But and so then they get split up, and so this is where shit hit. Like, what's gonna happen now? But we discover Eric, thankfully, using smoke bombs to save
Yes,
Alan,
yes,
and you got Billy off with the Kirby's, and now we've been last seen up until Eric showed up. We had 5 adults or 5 humans going on, and now we're gonna get down to 4, but then we get Eric back, but because we're
right.
gonna lose Yuneski, and they again establish how smart these raptors are by
Yes,
setting up a trap by um, hurting him badly, so he can't
yep,
move, but he's not dead completely, because
yes.
this way he can move, and they'll try and save him.
And the way they executed this was so great, I thought, because of course Amanda tries to go save him, sort of slips down the tree, gets caught on a limb, and is sort of hanging upside down. And the raptors come in, and it's a great moment where it's like, oh, this was a trap, but she's okay. And they're like
Yeah,
jumping up at her and snapping at her, and it's so well
cool.
done. And it doesn't, like my criticism last time about the height of the raptor jumps. This was done in a way that's like, okay, I believe that she's just out of their top jump
Yeah.
reach, and they are so smart to have set up this trap.
I will say though, I will point out that those, the trees seem pretty big, and like the branches, and enough for the humans to walk across. These raptors seem pretty smart and pretty good with jumping. It's weird that they never jumped.
It's a good point.
um,
Their only
oh,
weakness.
but I guess actually, well, I guess they were trying to find the eggs, and they were right, because that's what we established, is that they're
And
not
again,
killing them right away because they want to find these eggs.
yes, and Billy loses the bag, and again, there's a very specific shot of Grant picking up the bag, and why did he take the time to do that? But maybe he's even asking himself that, but he's still running. And yeah, he gets cornered by 3 or 4 raptors. And again, this is where in the last film I'd be like, okay, now they kill him, but they had a good reason. They're like, no, we know that you have the eggs, and we need to find the eggs before we kill you. Maybe a little flimsy, but I at least bought that they're like they have another agenda rather than just eating him.
And going back, compared to even the first film, but definitely the last film, is that they're definitely setting up that even though, yeah, they'll kill you and they'll be bastards about it, they are still very practical, and they're not killing you until they know what's happened to their children, basically.
Right.
So that's awesome. And yeah, and then we've got this great shot where, like, still gives me a little jump every time, where Alan's trying to figure out what they're saying. He ducks down, he puts his hat there, and then he goes back up, and the raptor's head is right there. Like,
Yes, yeah.
um, and then we discover that, Eric saves the day, and Eric's been living in a watering truck for 8 weeks,
And he's eating a
and
crunchy
one of the
bar, and there's
yeah,
there's obviously food.
do they really last that long? Apparently,
Yeah, I was wondering.
but in one of the, you know, I don't know how I feel about the T-Rex piece.
Yes, another like sort of odd throwaway thing that like you'd think maybe that would come into play in some way later, or there would be
Yeah,
something more to it, but it doesn't.
it was no, it's just this weird joke, and it just like you don't want to know. And I often get annoyed with movies and shows when they just like do that. I'm like, well, no, you set it up. I need to know how you got
Yes.
this.
Speaking of setting up the payoff,
Yeah,
that's a perfect example. And you know, my brain went to like, oh, maybe they need to attract the Spinosaurus to maybe distract the raptors in some scenario or something like that. And they use it for that purpose. But no, it's sort of a weird joke. And there's one more weird joke that involves other dino waste coming up.
yes,
There's a bit of a theme happening here, but yeah, man, I was okay with it. I was really okay with Eric sort of having survived. They do enough for me to be like, okay, I'll let it go. He's in a water truck that the Spinosaurus could probably just crush, but that's okay. You know, maybe he just doesn't go to
yeah,
that area, or maybe he's learned where the dinosaurs go and where he's safe, because he does mention he has knowledge about that. It's the opposite of what we thought, that the carnivorous dinosaurs are actually on the outskirts, and the herbivores are on the inside. But there's some nice dialogue between Grant and Eric about their books, and actually really well written dialogue where he's like, I can't believe you survived for 8 weeks. It's astonishing. Well done. And he's
yeah.
like, it's only been 8 weeks. Like for him, it feels like it's been a year or more probably.
Oh
And
God, right? Can you
Grant,
imagine
yeah,
as a teenage boy, like how much time that would really feel like?
of course, yeah.
Um,
And Grant turns that moment on its head and says, but you're alive, and that's the important thing. And did you read Malcolm's book? And they have a great moment where it's like, yeah,
yeah.
he's a bit out to lunch, that guy.
And I really
Eh,
like that, because I like that even though they went through this traumatic thing together, Alan still views Malcolm the exact same way.
that's right, yeah. Totally. I mean, and that's a good criticism of the previous film is Malcolm doesn't really change at all in that film, right? Whereas Grant in the first film, it's a discussion about fatherhood, and this one does the same, right? Billy is sort of a son in some ways to him, and Eric sort of reaches that same status, and so that exploration of fatherhood around Grant is continued in this one, and maybe we'll get to see that sort of finally come to fruition with the son in the next film. And then we're back to the satellite phone, which is
Yes. So, okay. Here's a big criticism that a lot of people have.
okay.
Is how did this giant thing just appear standing there? There's
Yes.
I've been reading some stuff about it, and they were saying like some predators like this would have tried to have been very still and waited till they're like waited for a certain time. So I could kind of see it, there's stalking of the prey and shit. But it's such a great scene because we forgot, or we haven't established that the satellite phone is in the Spinosaurus,
Right.
So you're hearing that noise, and then to turn around and there it is, just standing there.
That was a moment
have this beautiful.
that moment resonates with me, and it doesn't really make sense that we could hear it through the stomach of the Spinosaurus. And you're right, it doesn't really make sense that we wouldn't hear him because he causes an earthquake. But you know what? Again, we're watching a movie, and that's something that I think we all have to accept. I think we talked about it last time, how zombies make a ton of noise until you don't want them to make any noise, and then they're right behind you. So that's just how it is.
Right behind you. Apparently, there's a shot. I was reading about this today, and I'd never noticed this before, and I have to rewatch it to see. as Eric and Alan are walking and they're starting to hear the cell phone, apparently there's like puddles on the ground and you can see like ripples going on.
Oh, really?
Uh, so I'm gonna have to rewatch that to see if that's accurate. But and I don't feel like the Spinosaurus is always like running. Like if he's running, that's gonna make a lot more noise and you're gonna
Right,
feel
of
it.
course.
But
It can be more
I just
silent if
love
it
it
needs
because
to be.
you have this scene where the music's all happy, the family's reunited, but stuck between the cage and or the fence there, and you got Billy being like, "Hey, you found my bag. Oh, do you want me to take that from you?" And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Alan's
yeah.
like, "We got to find an opening."
Yeah.
And so now there becomes this chase sequence to try and get away from the Spinosaurus, and then they and then they have this moment where they think they're safe because he's still on the fence, but then he runs right through it.
Yeah, yeah, which is a great visual, and this reuniting moment with the fence in the way is brilliant. Like really, really nice piece of filmmaking. I thought really nice moment where it's like they're together, but they're actually not. I actually would have loved it if they hadn't been able to fully reunite in this moment, if they had to be separated a little bit longer. But everyone does, great performance. Like I'm totally buying that they're sort of seeing their child for the first time in 8 weeks.
Yeah,
And yeah, the other thing that's fantastic about this moment is when they're running, when Grant and Eric are running from the Spinosaurus and find a hole in the fence and finally get through. Um, oh man, Grant just barely making it. I watched that a few times too, and it's very tight. It's very close. It's very very well done. I was again like the movie's really cooking at this point, and I'm very
yeah.
impressed. Except he busts through that giant fence,
And then
but
he
then
doesn't
can't
make
get
it
through
through the
this
building.
tiny door,
Yeah.
which is weird.
No, there's definitely a few to have it back to back. That's the
Yeah, it's a bit.
problem.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
but we're
They.
we're talking a lot here, so we got to start moving a bit here.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, sorry.
I just I just looked at the time and I was like, holy crap. So we got to talk about because this is first Alan establishes that Billy's been lying to him and he stole the eggs. But
Yes.
then they see the boat, so then they go into the bird cage. And this is the first time that pterodons have ever gone to sequence. They've been trying to be in the movies, and I
Yes.
believe there's a scene in the first book as well, um, where they get attacked because it's such great and people love the flying dinosaurs. But we finally got it in this movie, and it's done so creepily. And I just have to talk the fact that it's all foggy in there and you can't see
Yes.
what's going on.
Yeah.
I love this scene where um, Amanda and Alan have made it to the other side, and it's Eric's turn to go across,
Yes.
and the drums and in the score start
Yes.
happening, and the big pterodon gets on there, and Alan's like, "Oh my God, it's a bird cage," and Amanda's like, "A bird cage for what?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as it comes out of the shadow, like you can see the figure, and then Eric realizes it's not his mom, and it is just so good, and I
It
love it
really
so
is.
much.
It's really well done. And there's that great moment where he's got his hand on the rail and he feels the bridge sort of shake, and it's like, what is that? And yeah, and we're stuck in between the two sides of the bridge, and we know that there's a dinosaur in between them, but they don't know it yet. And yeah, the reveal and the other dinosaurs, and really, there's this angry moment, and Grant talks about it later, where he says, the last thing I said to him was, he's no better than the people who built this place.
Yeah.
That sort of motivates him to save Eric and put on well, he already had it on the whole time, but he jumps and he's paragliding now, which I loved, and they set it up properly. Like you see him folding it up earlier, you see them take that was well put together, and it's a great redemption moment for Billy.
How else could you have a good action sequence with pterodons if not having a human fly?
Right, of course,
We're
yeah.
not using a helicopter. We're not using an airplane or anything like that. So this makes the most sense, and it does work so well. And yeah, like they look great. I think they did such a great job with the
Yeah.
pterodons, and maybe because
Yeah.
it's darker in there, so that's what helps. because when we get to the animatronic baby pterodons, like they look too
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. They're
fake,
reminding me of the compies a little bit when they latch on and then it's just their heads moving a little
Yeah.
bit. But the fact that the he saves Eric and then he also sort of puts himself in peril by hanging from it and is being attacked. It's just a brilliant sequence. I mean, what more could you ask for? There's great story in his redemption moment, and then great tragedy in the fact that we appear to have lost him as well from the team, which I'd totally forgotten about that he died at this point, or he appeared to die. But of course, and all the running around that they're doing, that the cutting back and forth to like, oh, it can't get in here, but it gets in there, and then they all fall down, and the pterodon falls down as well, and then the thing falls on top of it. It's
Yeah, because
just
you don't just have
well done.
Eric and Billy. You don't just have Eric and Billy in
Right.
turmoil in the
There's
cage. You
two
have Alan
simultaneous
and
attacks happening.
Kirby. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what's great. And anybody. Well, I like to think of the pterodons. If dinosaurs evolved into birds, then it's very clear that the pterodons are Canadian geese.
Right. Totally.
Just evil bitches.
Make sure we close that gate behind us with the geese for sure.
Yeah, and so that's a nice little shot where they kind of close it, and then the scene's all done, and then the latch kind of goes up, and we don't see anything come out there.
Right. Yeah. It's fantastic. It's maybe one of the best attack sequences of at least of these three films.
I love it, and I hope we see. I'm excited for more pterodons in the future film. And so now we're making onto this boat, and we're thinking that things are kind of smooth sailing. And like we mentioned, we have this great moment where Grant talks about two types of kids: those who want to grow up to study stars, and those who want to go out into space.
Yes.
And this great little speech she gives.
Yeah.
And then of course it's added in with the classic score and the dinosaurs coming to the boat there. And so it's seems like smooth sailing. And then this leads into the
very quickly, it reminds me of Ellie as well. That like Ellie seems to have gotten out of the game of being, at the digs. Now she's writing books and she's got her kids and she's at home. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I certainly sort of saw the parallel